Hey guys, thank you for joining us. We are excited today. We actually have 208 people that are registered. We have a pretty small live turnout. And I'm actually going to ask you guys, I'll do this at the end of the webinar, but I want you to think about we're contemplating shifting our webinars to Thursday night just because we find that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, everybody's teaching, everybody's training. And Thursday, I don't know, maybe you'll be at a bar and you'll watch us on your cell phone. Anyway, I'm Sarah Cooperman and I'm the CEO of SCW Fitness, and I'm really excited about the three guests I have here. I like them as people and I really respect them as presenters, and I think it's very important the like thing comes first. We've got Abby Apple with us, and she's the owner of Abby Fit Consulting and collaborates with organizations including the YMCA, Crunch, Equinox. She's authored programs, she created the SCW Pilates certification, she created the SCW Bar certification, she contributed to the ACSM group exercise manual and the Schwinn certification for cycling. She is a brand new recreational therapist. She just got her degree, so we're very excited about that. So thank you for joining us, Abby. And we have Jeff Howard with us, who I think you guys all know. He's a celebrity trainer on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Right, Jeff?
You got it.
Salt Lake. Yeah, yeah. Very cool. It's really cool. He has a degree in kinesiology. He's an international presenter and an SCW faculty member. He teaches our group exercise certification along with the aquatic certification. He's even taught, sorry, Abby, also the Pilates certification, who originally was created by June Kahn, who really started our first Pilates certification. We love June Kahn. And Jeff started Jeff Howard's Athletes Club, which was a successful fitness streaming channel. He started that during the pandemic. And he started Jeff Howard's Fitness, which is a group training and personal training studio in Louisville, Kentucky. And then we have somebody who's new to the SCW Mania family, who we've grown very quickly to love and admire, is Patrick Mummy. And he earned a baseball scholarship to San Diego State University, so he's a well-rounded athlete, and graduated with a bachelor's degree in athletic training. He founded Symmetry for Health and was awarded a patent on a measurable system for postural assessment and corrective exercise. This is really key. It's called Align Smart Technology. He's written 3 books. His most recent book was The Physics of Pain, Becoming Pain-Free, which was on the New York Times bestseller. He has spoken on the subject of postural assessment at conferences, at corporations, and he was absolutely flooded at the last convention. We had to kind of double his booth size because there were so many people. He keeps yelling at me for not doing it myself, going in and getting assessed. So I'm really excited about this. This is going to be fun. And we're recording this webinar so you guys know that you can share it with people. We'll make sure to send you an email, and you can share it on social media. Make sure that people log in. What is the primary factor that you consider in regards to posture and alignment? What's the primary factor? Patrick, you were the one who was telling us about these 20 markers you use when you're assessing posture and alignment.
Well, when you're measuring, when you're analyzing, when you're moving, anything that has to do with the human body, what you're actually talking about is gravity. And it's one of the things that I talk about and emphasize the most in my seminars is we always skirt around that subject. Everything that we train, everything that we talk to people about, we just take for granted that there's a force called gravity. And there's a bunch of laws that we have to abide by, mainly known as physics, when we're talking about the human body. So what we really captured with Symmetry is quantifying the architectural building of the human body and how the blueprint of what you should look like around that force is depicted in terms of how you hold yourself and then move yourself functionally. So it's really, that's the main factor that we use is gravity, and we're just trying to put a more emphasis on the laws that surround it. That's all.
Very cool. One thing I want to remind everybody is if you move your mouse and you go to the bottom of your screen, you're going to see that green share button. If you go to the left of that is the chat box. And I love to hear where you guys are from with your name and your city and state or province, where you guys are from. Type it in. We like to hear from you. And if you have questions, because these people are incredible resources, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We always look at it. Now, Patrick, I'm going to go back again. What would you consider the of those 20 markers? Give me your top 5.
Pelvis is the main one. Again, what we talk about is the development of the human body in the first 1 year of life. Literally takes 12 months for the body to actually get vertical around the force of gravity. So it's not something that we're born with and we just start moving. We literally takes 1 year out of your life to figure out how to hold yourself up and then move around that force. In your pelvis, whether your hips are level, whether the tilt of your pelvis is the same, whether it's not rotated, is your center of mass. So in physics, it's called your motor unit, your pelvis and your legs. Your upper body is your passenger unit, but that development in that first year of life really sustains the effectiveness and the efficiency of the human body, both from a static perspective and a dynamic perspective. So to us, the pelvis is everything. It determines how your back sits on top of it and how your legs and your feet move under it.
Oh, that's interesting. I think that's fascinating. I love that your reference to gravity, because I feel like my posture has significantly changed throughout my entire life, and also my lifestyle has affected my posture significantly. A lot of people know that I have 4 boys, and they were big children, and I'm always carrying one on my left hip, and I was always doing everything with my right arm, like talking on the phone. Remember when phones used to look like this? Cooking, etc. Always on my left hip. And if you see the way my back is aligned now, it's pretty difficult. Now, Jeff, when we were talking about this, I was wondering, and when someone walks into your class, into your Group X class, how do you deal with it? What's your first impression, and how do you examine or at least evaluate on a cursory level their posture or their alignment?
That's a great question. It's one of those things where when our participants walk in, let's be honest, we start to scan them automatically, and you can tell by their movement skills if there's something off or not. But it's basically when you start your warm up. When you're doing your warm up, that's when we actually assess their movements. And you walk around the room and you can kind of tell who's in the back row, why they're in the back row, the people in the front row. And you can tell by their movement skills. When you start to do a movement, their prescription might vary because they're actually helping themselves out with something that they feel is imbalanced. And at that point is when sometimes we choreograph stuff and you have to maybe boycott it and go to something else because you realize that the fitness level of your class might not be up to where it is. But we've always recommended when we start on movements is to start with the base, wherever they're contacting the floor, whether Pilates be their bum, group exercise, their feet, cueing paddle foot or a plie or whatever it is. If your foundation is sound, then we can do all the mobility, but we have to cue contacts where we're contacting the floor. And I think that, Patrick hit on it hugely. You'll see a lot of times when they start to move that their toes start to come in. Well, that's a direct relationship from their hips and their pelvic. That's from way back when. We've got to start to cue them this way.
Abby, what are your thoughts on posture and alignment, and at least giving a first assessment when they walk in the room?
Well, you are. As soon as they come in, and I know we mentioned this, that we're judging them as they walk in the room, but you're judging not only their posture, but also just their energy as they walk in the room, and if they're open to some feedback, because you do want to give that feedback. You want to talk about posture and talk about positioning throughout the movements. And so being able to cue people, of course, it's very important in a group fitness environment. And we want to make sure that we're not picking out individuals, though you do want to learn to communicate better with different people. Everybody communicates differently, which I'm sure we'll talk about, a little bit later. But I look at the person that walks in the room, and then based on whatever the class is, what class are we experiencing? Is it a strength class? Is it a Pilates class? Are we down on the ground the entire time? Are we doing standing movements? And then what's the movement? And then when I come back to the movement, and I go back to what Patrick mentioned, I always start with the hips. Of course, I look at the feet, as Jeff was mentioning, but I start with just that lengthening from this, from the feet all the way to the top of the head. What do they look like? And I cue them from the tips. I was joking, Pilates, from the tips of their toes, right? No, to the tip of their nose. Everything. I look at everything, and that's why in a group fitness environment, I'm probably the most obnoxious because I never shut up. I'm always talking. I'm like, I never shut up now. But what are your feet doing? What are the position of your toes in relation to your knees, in relation to your hips, in relation to your spine? And where are your shoulders placed in relation to your hips and then your ears? So I talk about all this throughout each movement. And then what are we working? If you know what you're working, that's going to help as well. What muscles are we working? I know that no muscle works by itself. We got that. But there's a primary mover. There's an agonist. And we know that people want to feel this. So we talk about that in addition, and helping them to get into the right position so that they feel what they want to feel, what they need to feel, and that they walk out of the class feeling better, feeling successful.
And Patrick, I'm just gonna throw this right in there. I asked Patrick, I said, how do you assess people when they're in the class? And Patrick, how did you answer that?
Well, it's really hard.
Oh, come on.
I'm going to skirt around it.
He's not skirting. He says you can't. You got to
really
do it
can't.
before they get in. All right, go ahead.
No, you can. You can, absolutely. But the problem, and I found this when I first started Symmetry 25 years ago, I had a partnership with a company called Del Mar Workout, because that's where I started. Symmetry was in Del Mar, which I don't know why I moved away from Del Mar. Don't ask me that. But they were really excited about us and the concept that we had and bringing it into their gym as a group class. And we were like, this is great. So we advertised it for two weeks, and we ended up having like 25, 30 people come to our first class. And it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare, because the problem with group fitness, as I see it, is we don't pre-qualify people as they come in. And we really should, because as Abby and Jeff are saying, it's you don't know what you don't know until people are coming into your class. And then all of a sudden it's up to us as trainers to really assess who's what and try to really curve who can do what and who shouldn't be doing what. And what we ended up doing in that first class is spending way too much time on certain people that were at this level and this flexibility and this pain level versus this person that was holding a position for 10 minutes because we were concentrating on somebody else who couldn't do it. So I think if we were to really hone in on group fitness, we've thought about doing this here at Symmetry, is pre-qualifying people so that they came into very specific classes of like people. So we knew that when we did these group classes, we were going to have a big variance in terms of factors that were that much different. So and again, the other topic is that, people have accrued what they've accrued over life because of sitting too much and repetitive stress and injuries. And so what you get in your class is what you have to work with. And it's, from a structural perspective, it's really hard to move somebody that's statically out of alignment. So that's kind of the over.
And I think it's really interesting what you're saying. You want to get a group of like people, because then it's easier to have them travel through the program together. But we don't get that. If it's 9 a.m., you know why they're there? Mm-hmm. Because it's 9 a.m.
It's convenience.
All right. It's 5:30, and that's what's happening. Right. And then the other thing I think that's fascinating that you bring up, Patrick, that reminds me, is that a lot of times if we've got a class for beginners, like a Pilates, an intro to Pilates, or a circuit for the ages, which might be for older adult, whatever, or deconditioned. People that come to the instructors, a lot of times that the group fitness managers or directors, assigned to that, are the beginning instructors. And I'm like, oh, no. That's when you need the more advanced, experienced people like Abby or Jeff that can, when these people walk into the room, Abby and I are checking out their clothes. That's what we're looking at. Where did you get your tights? Where's that cover up? Are you talking Athleta, or are we talking Lulu? It's not just that. It's that we're looking for that. We can kind of suss out pretty quickly, figure out pretty quickly what's going on with them. And I wish that there was more training that we could provide in this group atmosphere, but it seems like with the people possibly going through Symmetry, Patrick, are you finding it is a lot of group fitness instructors looking to get into personal trainers, or is it also personal trainers or people just doing it for themselves?
Well, it's actually both, and that's why. So out here in California, there's a company called QIAFIT. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's a women's group, a functional training group, and kind of, I guess, reminiscent to Curves in the past. But they're more functional training, more CrossFit-like. But we've partnered with them because they want their members to come in less risk averse, right? So if we can get them analyzed prior to coming into a functional training, in fact, we're setting up our equipment so that those members can come in 15 minutes early, do their specific individual stretching, and then do the group fitness, so that we get some individuality to their preparedness for the class. That's the goal of this. Because again, with functional, once you get there, you're moving, right? So
can I want to mention one thing
yeah,
about
please,
your program?
Abby.
Get a second. No, but I wanted to mention one thing about his program, about Patrick's program, Symmetry. So I went through it. I went through, not the whole thing, but I went through. He assessed me. You guys all assessed me twice. One time a little short one, and then the other one was extensive in front of 30 people. Awesome. Anyway, but what it did, for me, and I think that this can help some of our members, is it makes you aware of your misalignments. It makes you aware of where you're imbalanced. And then it gives you, as Patrick was mentioning, a little bit of homework to do so that you will hopefully move better, be a little more aligned in the classes. So you already walk in kind of a little bit above, a step above maybe where you were before you had done any of the assessment. So having members be able to do this ahead of time, huge, because it made me more aware, and I'm able to do some of those stretches before I do my own workouts now.
That's interesting. Beth is running our webinar tonight. Beth, would you put the Symmetry website in the chat box so that we have that? But you know, not a lot of us, or not every one of us, has this ability or access to this program. We have it at Manias, but not everybody has access to it. What are some of the keys that you look for? Like, Jeff, I think I was chatting with you about, you know, my shoulders and holding my kids on one hip and this pulling up. And then as I've aged, you know, the kyphosis sets in, the forward head. When you see somebody like that in your class, how are you cueing them? Are you pointing them out individually? Are you doing it as a group? What do you find to be the most effective?
Well, the thing is, you know, like everything, we're not doctors. So we're, unlike Patrick, we don't want to diagnose them, you know, so we have to make sure that we are cueing them all around. If you see somebody's shoulders forward, we should always be cueing shoulders back. We should always do ear over shoulder, old school, ear over shoulder over hips, alignment, alignment, alignment. And if you do see somebody with an imbalance, that's huge. I a lot of times will tell them point blank, listen, I know what I'm going to be doing in class. So you might want to book you with a personal trainer to strengthen you a little bit. I don't ever prognose what's going on, but I might suggest they do a personal training segment with me or someone else. And then if it's another trainer, I'll tell them this is what's going on with Mary. She has some kyphosis going on. Let's strengthen her a little bit. But I never diagnose, because that way I'm letting them know I know how dynamic my moves are. And when we kind of talked about the classes, people are talking about motivationing and level 1, 2, and 3. We should all know how to teach with progressions and regressions and how to give everybody a successful workout in a safe manner. But let's be aware, a lot of people are unaware of their bodies. Some people are just so unaware. No, even if there's a mirror there, no matter how you cue it, sometimes they won't get it. But our job as teachers in a group setting is to say it over and over and over again. I love what Abby said. Overtly cueing. That's what we do. We have to overtly cue for the masses. And there's nothing wrong. You know how we always do the right side and we start to walk around on the left side of the body and we kind of help people out? That's when you can go up to someone, Sarah, personally and say, push your shoulders back, lift your knee, move your foot more to me. Come back in a standing position now, step back into a lunge. It's not that's when you do your one-on-one coaching in a group setting.
It was very interesting. I was taking a yoga class. My husband and I do yoga together, which is the funniest thing you ever want to see. You're like, but besides that, so we're doing a yoga class. We have this wonderful instructor, and her name is Morgan. Just adore her. And she starts us in child pose, which is basically your kind of toes are together, your knees are apart, you're sitting your butt closer to your heels, and you're just relaxing forward in child pose. And what she said was, if you would like me to physically align you, please cross one hand over the other. And if you feel uncomfortable with me touching you, please keep your hands apart. Both are valid positions for a child pose. And it was I thought that was really brilliant, because we are at a very delicate time in our history where some people still don't want to be touched. So I thought that that was helpful. What factors do you consider when looking at posture and alignment variations between clients, Abby? What different things do you look for?
Well, I'm looking at, I mean, it could be height, and the height sometimes contributes to the posture in their, you know, their spinal alignment. And we were just mentioning, you know, a kyphotic curve, or somebody who is extremely lordotic like me. So I'm looking at those things. Most of the time we see somebody come in the class who's typically, unfortunately, most people are a little bit more kyphotic today, and it probably has to do with all of the tech that we do are hunching over the computer. But those are the main ones that I'm looking at, and then how I can fix, I shouldn't say fix them, but how I can help them to align better in the class. And that's where the cueing comes in, and how important that is, being able to communicate with the people in the classes. And you want to make sure that you're able to really, you've got your three types of cueing. You've got your visual cueing. So having people, and that's why our posture as fitness professionals has to be the best. That's why, I mean, this is why I went through symmetry, to see where I'm misaligned. So we want to be the best we can. So we're able to be the best visual cuers, but also verbally cueing. And I come back to this, but it's so often that I hear instructors cueing and saying words that don't mean anything at all. Move it, bend it, shift it, shake it. What is it? Be specific with your cues in class. And sometimes you've got to practice it, verbalize it, say it by yourself, but use words that have meaning. And I cannot stress that enough. And people take you a lot more seriously. So that's one. And then also tactile. And I love this, because this is something that I never thought about, because, you know, when you ask somebody, we all ask them, hey, can I touch you? You're like, how weird is that? You're like, can I touch you? Just make sure that you say it without looking them in the eye. Hey, can I touch you? You're like, it's really weird. Anyway, so, and nobody wants to go, yeah, you can touch me. Nobody wants, anyway. But you want to make sure that you feel comfortable with all three types of communication in class, and be good at it. And I know most people, even if they're experienced instructors, it's amazing. We've got all these different, you know, let's say verbal tics that we're not aware of, and just becoming a better cuer. And then the other last piece I'll mention is that when I'm giving those cues, most of the time, again, I look at the group as a whole. That's one. But then after I give those broad cues, then I start looking around the room to see where I will get my next cue. So rather than just saying shoulders down a million times, because I know we stick with the shoulders down, like, all right, wait, what else can I cue in the class other than shoulders down? People's shoulders are down on their hips at this point. I'm like, shoulders down. All right, I look around the room, and that's where I get my cues. So if I see someone's knee is misaligned, I'm like, hey, can you bring your knee back in alignment with your hip? Take a look at yourself in the mirror right now. Are your knees aligned with your toes? So knowing what the movements should look like, what good looks like, that's first. And then being able to cue it visually, verbally, and then of course tactily if necessary.
And I like what you said about getting them, you know, check yourself out in the mirror. And that's very important. It's interesting because in yoga, it's like if my yoga instructor tells me one more time, you do you, you do you. Okay, let's reinforce my poor posture over and over and over again. You know, take the mirrors out and let's breathe in some sage. You know, I'm constantly aging. I love what Leslie wrote. Leslie wrote, I mainly work with 60 plusers, active adults, keeping the emphasis on proper alignment. She focuses on proper alignment while encouraging the motivation, but the focus is on the alignment. So she's very close with you, Abby, on that. Jeff, I also know that you're a big one for names, like knowing your students' names. And I think that personalization really makes them, instead of just the general kind of everybody, you know, roll your shoulders up, back and down, engage your abs, tilt your pelvic, you know, pull your belly button in and give me a posterior pelvic tilt. It's like, rather than this, I don't want to call it garbage dump cue, but if we personalize it, everybody's still hearing it, everybody's still making that change, but it helps to connect with them. And you use it all the time, right?
All the time. I really believe in knowing everybody's names. And if I don't know their names, then I give them a fake name, or I call them husband or wife or blondie or new girl or
White shirt.
girl. And I also wanted to piggyback on your cueing, guys. I want you to start thinking about what you're doing to hold your posture. Start to really internalize, are my shoulders back? And then just say verbally, are your shoulders back? When you're getting tired with that exercise, what is making your knee? And if an exercise doesn't feel good on you, it's not going to feel good on your participant. So I tend to walk away from things that doesn't feel good on my body, and I teach things that I think generally overall is good for everybody. I tend to stick away from exercises that I just think are, after years of practice, that just don't work for some people, And it's a simple cues in a squat. People start to feel it in their lower backs. All you cue is taking their hands behind their backs. As soon as they take their hands behind the back, it takes the stress out of the lower back. Taking a foot back into a kickstand takes the alleviation out of the lower back, which is really the pelvis area. Everything that Patrick says where it stems from is what we're trying to eliminate all the time. Lower back issues, Abby will tell you, we always tell them to separate their legs. In yoga, separate your legs. If you have any kind of lower back issues, separate your legs. It takes the stress out of that area. And that just takes practice, but that's how you have to cue it. Have lower back issues, take your legs a little further apart, ba, ba, ba. But it's just kind of trial and error. But if it doesn't feel good on you, it will never feel good on them. I promise you that.
And Jeff, what have you found to be the most effective way to transition your group fitness participant into a personal training client? Because that's 74% of the people that attend Mania conventions are group fitness instructors, and 60% of them are personal trainers. And I'm not talking 60% of the 74%. I'm talking about 60% overall. So people do both. And it's very lucrative to personally train a client, not just teach Group X. So how do you do that? Do you use your cueing?
Great question. I use my cueing, but also I believe in a soft sell where I'll walk in with a t-shirt that maybe says personal training on it or my company's name on it. I walk in and then I might take it off when I have a tank top on, so they're already aware that I do personal training. But remember, guys listening in, they're already a part of your tribe. They love you. And if they can get one-on-one time with you, even more so. But I'm a firm believer in going up to someone and saying, listen, you're doing great endurance training. Let's maybe do a little bit different and do a little bit heavier weight, because with change, you get change. And I sell them on the whole principle, but I also know everybody I personal train right now, Sarah, has an alignment issue, and that's why they can't do Group X as often as they used to. They now come to me to help them get healthier, get stronger, get one-on-one, but I also let them know I can help you become stronger. I can help you be more aligned. I can do it so you're not hurt anymore. And we can do that on a one-on-one setting. It's so much easier to do alignment one-on-one than it, of course, is in a group setting.
Now, Mary just said, when you use a person's name, do you do that in a positive way? Like, Mary, your shoulder posture looks great. I want to say, but your pelvic alignment sucks. You don't do that. How do we do this in a positive way? And Linda said, how can I introduce more specific cueing to a group who have been doing and expecting the same workout every week for years? They're resistant to change. I mean, Abby, do you have any advice on that? And then Patrick, I'm going to come back to you with some of the alignment questions.
So which we may address Linda's question first?
Yeah, I think we all are encountering that to some degree, because we were shut down, we're open, schedules are shifting now. We're going from a summer schedule to a fall schedule. People have to deal with this.
Well, they get used to doing, the participants get used to doing the same thing. They like the same thing. They like to feel the same thing. They're good at the same thing. As the instructor, you're good at teaching those things. I get it. That's why we teach them over and over. What I do is I try to introduce like 1 or 2 new little tweaks every week. And I say a tweak. So somebody mentioned to me, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but they said, your bar class is different every week. Oh my gosh, it's so great. I'm like, it's not. It's the same thing every single week. And what I do is I add in 1 or 2 little tweaks to the workout so that it feels different. and it challenges them just a little bit. So with your group that's so used to doing the same thing, just add in 1 or 2 new things. It could be a different direction for your lunge. So if you're doing a lot of sagittal lunges, add a drop of rotation to it. As an example, maybe you're doing that already, but add a drop of rotation to it. Change what equipment you use, something like that, to make it feel a little bit different to your group.
No,
I think
that's
there was
very
something else you
helpful.
mentioned.
And Patrick, how do you get these people to adhere when you make these recommendations, when you do the symmetry analysis? How do you get them to adhere to it? You know, to get to class 5-10 minutes early, do the specific exercises, and then join in.
I find that guilt works a lot, really well. I was raised Catholic, so that's really my main goal, is to guilt people into. No,
Don't worry, it works for Jews as well.
I'll answer that question, but I want to cue on what Abby and Jeff were saying about cueing, and then I'll go into your question if you don't mind. You can get people to make changes within a class without even knowing they're making changes. And what I mean by that is, when I do my seminars and I'm teaching personal trainers on how to, work with their group and to analyze, as we're all discussing here today, the brain, when it has more reference points, it feels safer, which is why when somebody's really compensated and they only have their 2 feet on the floor, that's when things become really vulnerable, because there's no tie-in between that structural and dynamic relationship. So by simply adding, and I know you can't do this with every movement that we do in a personal training class, but by adding a simple strap around the knees or around the ankles, or a block in between the knees or around at the ankles, depending on what position you're in, it automatically takes the body and takes the brain and cues in these different reference points to allow the body to actually be more aligned within a movement. And again, I know with unilateral stuff that's hard to do, but you can get people to lower their shoulders. You can get people to take rotation out without telling them to do that. Because a lot of people, like they're referencing, a lot of people are kinesthetically unaware, as I like to call them. They don't really live in their bodies. They don't really know their bodies, which is why they go to fitness in the first place, because they're trying to get better in their fitness. But a lot of people have never been taught how to own and feel their own body. So when you add blocks and straps to certain movements without them even knowing what you're doing, it automatically allows for better alignment within that certain movement that you're trying to achieve.
Go ahead, please.
As far as compliance, that's always been my number one skepticism with our program, right? Because everything we do in symmetry is about preventative versus reactive. And what that means is that people have to change habits at home every day. And that's always, everybody shakes their head when you're like, okay, I know, I try to tell my clients to go home and stretch, but they don't and they won't. And we hear it all the time with our clients that come in for the first time when they've gone through physical therapy or something else. And I'll give you the short answer, is that we don't condition people to change habits at home. We condition them to come to us to do the work with them or for them when it comes to treatment and or training. And so you have to set the bar higher. If people who really want to get better in life, if I'm a nutritionist, I can't expect them to come into my office and we can have carrots and kale and then be okay with them going home and eating Krispy Kremes, which are really good. But you're not going to make any long-term goals or objectives if we don't force and support and educate those people at home to make daily habits in order to reach those goals. So that's the platform that we've created, is to really hold people compliant and know that we're actually partnering with them when they go home to do their exercises. So the measuring aspect of what we do really is what guilts people into doing what we want them to do, because everybody likes a good score. And so when they come in and get remeasured, they want to see that score drop, because a low score means they have better posture in our system. And everybody likes competition, regardless of what it is. People like good grades, they like good scores, they like to be validated. Like Jeff's saying, you don't talk down to people in the class, you talk up to them, because that's what they want. Everybody wants to be loved. I know it's cliche, but everybody wants to be loved and validated. And that's, I think, over 25 years, what we have perfected with our technology is the ability for people to understand that when they go home, they're being supported on what they need to do, because when they come back, we're going to measure their progress. and they really look forward to the scoring, which motivates their compliance. And that's kind of what we're trying to do, is blend that into personal training, whether it's personal or group, to get people to be more involved at home. And our stats, 15% of people are willing to do that, which to me is enough. It's kept me alive for 25 years. But it's growing because people want to be more proactive in their healthcare. They just need to know what to do and how to be held accountable for it.
And you know what's interesting is you talk about, the scores. I have read so much about gamification, about everybody wants to know, where they stand, what their score is, and I think that's really interesting. I think what's unique is we can also charge a little bit extra for this service and then provide it to our clients and integrate it into our teaching, which I kind of like. There's nothing wrong with us. I always say this over again, sending your kids to college, putting food on the table. I understand that as group fitness instructors and a lot of personal trainers, this is part-time. This is a part-time career. Now that's very unique. Very few professions you can say, I am a professional group fitness instructor, this is my career, but I teach 4 hours a week. I mean, that's crazy. That's what I work. So I like this idea. I think it's interesting. And I also think we got a comment from Rebecca, or actually I think it was Liz. So when you say everyone look where your toes are, and there is always someone who doesn't, Abby, I think this question's, I'm throwing this at you, because they think they are fine. Do you see, yeah, bring it on, babe. Do you single them out that they're not listening and paying attention? Because there's always a few people in class that want your job and are doing whatever they want.
It depends on how comfortable you feel with them to call them out and say, yo, look at your feet in the mirror. They're not turned in the same direction. They're once turned out. You could say something like that if you know them well enough, but you also can do what we call triple link cueing. So triple link cueing, and I know there's lots of different companies. There's different companies that use triple link cueing, but they all refer to a different way. So number one is give a command. So you told them, get your feet pointed in the same direction, as an example. They already think their feet are there. So what do? Well, second is giving more description about it. Can you turn your feet in like Susie? Look how great Susie looks over there. Her toes are pointed in the same direction. Everybody look down at your feet. Are they all pointed in the same direction as Susie, as an example? And then what you can say to them is you can make it more of a rhetorical question. So what I try to do, and this takes ego out of it, because I know who else is given a command to your class, and I obviously Liz, right? But who's given a command to your class and they just act like nothing was ever said. Like, it's like you say it again. And it's like you're banging your head against the wall. No one's heard a word you said, or they're completely ignoring you. And you become almost like a little angry by it, because you're like, they're purposely not listening to me. No, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think they actually think they're doing it already. So what I try to do is I try to rephrase it as a rhetorical question, take me out of it, the instructor, and say things like, are your toes pointed to the front of the room? Could you turn your toes a little bit more? So it puts the responsibility back on that individual.
Yeah, and I like that. And Liz actually said something like, she feels like she doesn't want to embarrass people, but she also doesn't want them to hurt themselves.
Right.
And it's a kind of delicate balance. Now, Jeff, I know you did a lot of virtual cueing, like when you were through Zoom and everything. We're all doing Zoom, but obviously right now. What do you consider when cueing in a virtual setting? Like, how are we? I understand we can do it in group. Do you do any personal training that's online?
I do a lot of personal training online. In fact, the housewife from Salt Lake, I train when they're not filming online all the time, and I'm given 7 minutes to train her, which can't get a lot done in 7 minutes. But I think it goes back to what we were saying about learning, and I think they're still visual learners. So you have to be really prepared on your side to show them what you need, and that they can see your body in alignment. But you also have to cue. But the thing is interesting about Zoom is they're very aware of themselves also on the screen. And it really helps them with body alignment as well, because you're definitely more one-on-one. It's almost better than a mirror, because I could look at all of you and say, left shoulder up, right shoulder up, or you can go like this, and you all would know exactly what I need visually and also verbally. So I felt actually Zooming was easier to actually get somebody to do what I need in a safe manner, because it definitely, once you're in their environment, You could see them, they can see you better. It was almost better than a mirror, I think. Because a lot of times when we're personal training, they don't have mirrors. It's just us being with them hand on hand.
And Patrick, do you ever train clients through Zoom?
Yes.
Please control yourself and don't take up the webinar.
Yeah, no, we were forced to, right? Especially over COVID. But that's why we're joining Mania, because we're trying to certify everybody to be able to be hands-on and actually measure people. But for those people who can't, then Zoom is the next best thing for us, because we do have to have that tactile palpation to actually get those measurements. So when you go Zoom, it's not as good because you're not in front of a client, but you can get 80% or so accurate, which still is good enough to take them to the next level.
That's great. And Abby, do you do a lot of training on Zoom?
I do classes. I do 4 classes a week. Yeah. So is there more to this? No, I'm kidding. Yeah. I mean, I do. No, I do 4 classes a week. I mean, right now I've got, like, my situation here. I've got this camera here on the computer, but I also have a camera up, like, on my ceiling, so that people can see everything I'm doing in class from head to toe. All right, not in your own house, but yeah. So that camera, the camera that I bought, the external camera, was,
we don't want to know,
right? No, but hugely important, so people could really see what I was doing from head to toe, everything, and I was able to talk about what the feet were doing, and then this, because people can see themselves, and they can see themselves, but it's super small, the picture, most of the time when they can see themselves. So this is where your verbal cueing is so important. Verbal cueing, and I mean, I thought I was good verbal cuer before COVID. Like, I'm 100 times better now than I was then. Rick, sure she is. No, I feel I'm better than I was back then. And the other thing that helps, this is like the hardest part about doing virtual or doing a live stream, especially with group fitness classes, is I found that I had to do a lot of the class with them now. So when I'm doing classes live, I can walk around the room and make adjustments, tactile adjustments, and fix people. But now I have to do the class with them, because I am now the visual cue for everything. And if we're doing anything that is, you guys know what I'm talking about, they're all my group fitness people, rhythm-based classes where you're moving with the beat of the music, that's where, oh my gosh, your verbal cueing has to be great, because you are moving to the beat. You only have a split second to say what needs to get said. So it has to be said at the right time, the right moment, so people are feeling what they should be feeling.
And what I really like is Liz wrote something interesting, is she was talking about, like, taking a photo of people and having them actually look at how they look. Now, see their posture and their body alignment. One of the things we do for group fitness instructors when we're evaluating teams of instructors, you have the instructor teach, but you not only hold the camera in front, sometimes you walk to the side and see how their posture is from the side and take it to the front. All you got to do is play that video for them, and they totally correct themselves. They say, this is what's going on, this is what I need to work on. And I love that idea of doing the photos, but I love the idea of also making it a video. Liz also says she hates to embarrass somebody, but it's much easier when you're sitting down and evaluating your staff, if you've got a group fitness staff or a presenter, and send them the video and say, hey, please take a look at this when you've got some time. Look at 33:01. That'll be 33 minutes and 1 second, and they can check themselves out, and it really will help. I can't believe it's time up. This is kind of crazy. I am going to show you guys something. We have Midwest Mania, actually, that is starting in about 2 weeks here. So people are still able to register at a discount. Here we go. great is that? I love Midwest Mania. And then I don't want you guys to miss, it's nutritioncoachingsummit.com. I know Beth will put this in the chat box. This is a wonderful conference that we have this weekend. It's only $99, and you get over 24 sessions on nutrition with some great people. And obviously, we still have space available for that conference, so you guys can feel free to register. And I really want to thank you, Jeff and Patrick and Abby. And I'm going to ask you, you get like really short because we're already a little bit over, and I know Beth has to take her dog out. So give me a little short, sweet statement of what you want to leave people with. Jeff, can I start with you?
I just wanted you always to be inclusive and not exclusive. So just teach with regressions and progressions and make everybody feel safe, and don't specify anybody out.
Abby?
Try this. Try to cue 1 or 2 clients facing away from you. Like they can't see you. Try to cue them and get them to do what you want them to do without them seeing you.
And Patrick?
If I were to go on the street and ask 100 people if they think stretching every morning is a positive thing, I would get 100 yeses. So inspire, tell people to wake up. I don't care what they do right now, but just do some stretching to get their body set for the day.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much, Patrick, Jeff, and Abby. And thank you, Beth, for running this webinar. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.